Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
What's that called when you disengage from reality? It's slipped my mind right now. Uh,
Disassociation.
that's the word right there.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Judd Angel. Judd, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Judd Angel, right out of Los Angeles, California. So excited to be here on Comedians in Elevators. We're taking a ride up to what, the 32nd floor? So come on, take a ride with us.
Right? Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am an actor, director, producer, DJ, musician. I prefer the title artist because that's a sort of a mouthful to introduce yourself that way, Director, producer, right? So I'm an artist, and I'm currently working. I have a production team. We're called Take Over Live, and we're doing sketch comedy and a lot of stuff happening with that. I wish I could tell you more, but you know how the NDAs are.
Sure.
But there's a lot of stuff coming real soon, and I have some movies that are coming out, a couple of sci-fi things that I did, and what else? I forgot I had to introduce myself.
No, it's all right. Does anyone call you, or have you called yourself DJ JD?
It's Judd the Stud.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes sense too.
No, it's actually DJ Digital Angel.
Ah,
That's
okay.
the moniker.
All
Back
right.
in the
Very
day,
cool.
I was known as Judd the Stud as just a joke.
Uh-huh.
But I used to DJ in all the military clubs down in San Diego, which is where I'm from, and wonderful gigs. The people in the military are so grateful to have entertainment there, and I was very dedicated to making sure everybody in the room was happy because you had somebody from Virginia, you had somebody from Northern California, you had somebody from way over on the East Coast, and they all had different music tastes. So it
That's
was a
where Jewel
challenge.
came from, right? Jewel was discovered there, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think so.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I think so.
Very cool.
Um,
Yeah. I was just gonna say, are you ready to get started?
Absolument. Let's go.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comment section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Joe, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I think so. Yeah. I remember telling jokes as a kid, not knowing what I was doing, just hearing somebody else telling a joke and then repeating it. And then I developed characters and sort of took off from there.
All right. Very cool. Well, you ready for the first question?
I do believe so.
Oh,
Yes.
well, all right. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
I think that depends, because a comedian riffing in his own voice or a comedian playing a character are two sort of different things. I went to see a friend of mine, Gayla Johnson, at the Ice House in Pasadena just last weekend, and she's hilarious. Go see her, by the way. She does these characters where she'll be her poised, normal self, And then the next thing you know, she's playing this really goofy character. I'm not gonna give away her best bits and stuff, but she's hilarious. And I had no idea. I've known her for almost a year now, and I had no idea she had these characters inside her,
Mhm.
and it was so entertaining. So, um, how much of the comedian's voice, character versus, yeah, it depends. It depends.
Fair enough. Okay, so how about punching up versus punching down? So where do comics versus comedians stand on this? And let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
I love the punching up versus punching down beginning of that question. And if I may, I say this all the time. People punching up, you're fighting the oppressor,
Hmm.
and people punching down is the oppressor. All right. Just had to get that out there.
Yep.
Um, but regarding the medieval prince, I loved some of the other answers, some of the other good folks that you interviewed gave. Very funny. Um, I'd like to be in that scene where
Mm.
the prince is angry at the jester and he's like, I've had enough. It'd be a fun scene to be part of.
It would be as a theatrical or comedic performance. You don't mean going back in time, or do
Beady,
you?
beady, beady,
Yes,
beady.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
all right. So is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
I um I think that uh, I don't want to sound like I'm being dismissive. I'm not, but I think it's more than just alignment because when I go and sit down and watch a comedian or listen to a comic, there's sort of an agreement I make with my brain to sort of disengage from reality. Same thing when I watch a movie.
Hmm.
Sort of disengage from reality so that I can get into the story. If I just stick with, oh, I talked to my mother-in-law today and I had to go to the store, and if I'm all up in that, I don't really enjoy the movie as much. What's that called when you disengage from reality? It's slipped my mind right now. Uh,
Disassociation?
that's the word right there. You sort of disassociate and you get into the scene better. So you get into the character or the comedian a little bit better if you can disassociate a bit and just enjoy what's happening right there in the moment. So are they agreeing with the comedian or a form of permission or alignment? Uh yeah, you want to agree with somebody that's working their ass off to make you laugh up there on stage. Yeah, I think so.
All right. So, how about cultural translation of comedy? So, how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Well, I I was just in France back in May. I have family back there, and um, this is another really good question. I've noticed that the French find self-deprecating humor very funny. They will insult one another. Australians are similar. They will insult one another, and it doesn't mean, oh God, you got me with those painful words. It's a joke and it's funny. Americans, they struggle with that a little bit. So there is a pretty big difference between cultures and who finds what funny. Uh, I've also lived in Central America, and their sense of humor is completely different. I won't go into details, but um, I think it's a great challenge as a comedian or as a comic to find a way to tie into all those cultures. Let's say you're up on stage and you see a very diverse crowd. Do you gear everything toward the American perspective, or do you try to hit each little niche in the crowd? Here's somebody possibly from Central America. Here's somebody maybe from the Ukraine. You want to know a little bit about each culture so that you can maybe gear it toward them. Is that a good
Hmm.
answer?
It is. I mean, there's no wrong answer, but it's definitely it works, makes sense to me. So then how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt? Physically, emotionally, or morally?
Oh boy. I think that hurts in the pocket in the because you want to get booked again and again, and if they're not laughing, you're not going to get booked and you're not going to get paid.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't take it personal. I don't take it personal if somebody doesn't get the joke or doesn't think it's funny. Um, I've told the funniest American joke to my French family. Did I go in the corner and oh no, I didn't. I just you tell me a joke then. Let me hear a joke.
Are you talking about your family?
Yeah, if my joke isn't working, let's hear a joke from you.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if they're if you're saying that you're a funny person, a comedian, comic, and they're expecting to be funny, and they don't necessarily know that they have to participate, do they?
If you're hanging out at home, yes, you want to encourage that, but in a performance setting, no, you do not.
Right. All right. So crowd work versus crafted work. So if comics riff like influencers in the comments section and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where's the sweet spot?
See, I don't want to give away all my secrets right there.
Okay.
That's a really deep question. And if I were to answer that 100% honestly, I'd be giving all my good training away. If you want a really good answer to that question, go and take a comic class from the groundlings or something.
Hmm.
Where is the sweet spot? Uh, I produce a lot of social media stuff, and it's hard to find that because there's such a diverse amount of content online nowadays.
Mhm.
It's a good question. I wish I had a good answer that wouldn't give everything away.
Fair enough. So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work?
Uh, I was talking about this last night with a peer of mine, and they said they think maybe they're lacking material
Mm.
if they're relying on the crowd to
Hmm.
to entertain for the whole evening, leaning too much on the crowd work. Are they lacking material, or is you know? Let's talk about someone like Don Rickles. Are you familiar with Don Rickles?
I mean, generally, yes. Absolutely.
He's an insult comic.
Hmm.
He's passed away now, but he made a living at insulting people in the crowd and insulting musicians that were there to in the orchestra pit playing for him. And his level of relying or leaning on the crowd, leaning on crowd work, um, made sense because he made fun of some woman's dress in the audience. He made fun of some guy's toupee. You know, perhaps a bit dated. People are much more sensitive today. But still, that was his bread and butter. You know, I think a lot of other comics don't want to do that today.
So what about when a comedian gets heckled?
Come heckle me. You may not be prepared. You may not be prepared what's going to happen.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
uh, I think it's expected. It's like if you build a house and put a door on the house, someone's going to come knocking on the door, right? If you go
Eventually.
and stand, eventually, if you go and stand on a stage and speak to crowds, eventually someone's going to heckle you. So you got to be prepared for that.
Okay, so very important question. Advertising and self-promotion. Who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy. where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Now, I'm not going to give a generalized answer to this. I'm only speaking on behalf of myself here. Comedy came very naturally for me. It's why I work so hard at getting recognition for my onstage work in drama and serious roles on stage or in film. I recognize that the advertising is a crucial part of the process to self-promote. I recently wrote a comedy sketch for the Takeover Live group I was mentioning at the beginning of the show. And it's about an actual thing that happened to me in an art gallery that I used to work at. And my production team, we're working really hard on it. I'm starring in it. I'm directing it. And the more we rehearse and the more we film each little piece of the scene, the funnier it becomes. And I feel it's sort of robbing my audience if they're not aware of it. So I'm out there self-promoting, talking about Takeover Live, talking about this sketch coming up. And it's an integral part of the process to promote. Who does it the best or the worst? I'm not a magician, so I cannot speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's hard to decide who does it best or worst, it's important. It's important, if you have a show, if you have a skit, if you have a performance coming up, of course you want to self-promote, right? You want to promote that. It's an important part of the process. I believe very strongly about that.
All right. So how about censorship and offense? So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Hmm. I'm still stuck on the previous question. Sorry. I think it's really important to self-promote. Sorry. I do post a lot online. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, you should, as you should, but absolutely. But are you trying to offend people ever? Is that something you do?
No, no. I think let's talk about Ricky Gervais.
Mhm.
Ricky Gervais can be sort of offensive. He courts a little bit of controversy. I kind of admire that in him. He is not afraid, to say something that could be taken offensive. When he hosted the Oscars, there were people that talked about him for weeks, saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have said this. He shouldn't have said that." He's brilliant. He got you talking about his performance for a couple of weeks afterwards. That's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
I mean, who would disagree with that? So then who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Hmm. Uh, I think the mudslinger survives more because they can choose their target.
Mm-hmm.
And if they choose a target to sling some mud at, maybe it'll land and maybe people will talk about it. Maybe the target will even talk about it and say, "Oh, did you hear what that mudslinger said about me?" And then next week they can choose another target. But the comic, the comedian, the magician, they have their act. There's not much they can rely on other than just that act. Yeah.
Makes sense to me. So timing and delivery, science or art? So do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Musician here, rhythm, loving it. My DJ shows, um, I would do a little tiny bit of stand-up early in the show.
Hmm.
I found that if I waited until later in the night to tell jokes, people were maybe a little bit intoxicated and they weren't really focused on what I was up there saying. Or
Hmm.
maybe they were focused on a conversation with people they met at the nightclub. Or so your timing there, your rhythm, um, the structure of my show had to include the stand-up jokes or timely observation of current events had to be early in the evening. Uh, that's an important part of it. Also, the timing, the structure.
I would agree. So how about laughter versus applause? So are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks or a primetime Emmy that validate the message?
Well, everyone hopes to be recognized and taken seriously for their work. Everyone wants to leave a legacy, I think. I do. I want to leave some sort of legacy where people will be like, that guy was so funny, or that guy was so stupid, or that guy's outfits were so dumb, we all want to, we all want that. And laughter, that's for me personally, it's absolutely food for my soul. This is why I love to perform live. I I prefer film acting, but if I get an opportunity to perform live in any sort of venue, whether it's theater or stand up or telling jokes or being part of a sketch troupe, I'm in because that laughter is something I really rely on to help me get through what I'm going through. What classic thing is best comedy comes from pain and tragedy, right?
Hmm.
Every comedian, I think, every good quality comedian has got that from somewhere in their life. And that's why we're up telling jokes. That's why we're up trying to get the crowd to laugh at what we're saying. We want that
Well,
laughter. Give me
well,
laughter.
well, absolutely. I mean, if we got silence, we got a problem, right?
Yes, very true.
So, how about comedy as commentary? So, when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
I think being a preacher will dilute the humor because there's a little bit too much of a message going on there. This is, of course, only my opinion, but you don't want to dilute your humor. You want to serve it up hot and fresh and full strength. Um, you know, keep the preaching in church. I'm not going to go to a nightclub so I can hear somebody preaching. I'm going to go to a church for that. All right. Um, but there's absolute brilliance in people like George Carlin, another reference to some early comics. He sees things from such a unique perspective. Um, yes, he crossed the line a lot. Yes, he gave a little bit of philosophy in there, but it was so entertaining. Did, do you like George Carlin? Have you seen some of his bits?
I definitely am a proponent. I mean, even AI loves him there. That's like he's the number one copied comic or comedian in the world. So, George Carlin's the man, 100%.
Love it. Yeah.
So, would
I
you say
mean,
he's a philosopher or a preacher?
not a preacher. I wouldn't call him a preacher. What he did broke barriers and brought attention to things that people weren't sort of ready to talk about.
Hmm.
Um, I admire the guy, and I can see why he's as you mentioned the number one comic on AI or he had to influence a lot of people, a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. I think he was one of the most influential of all time. So, Judd, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
Talk to me. Let's do this
All
thing.
right. So, board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
I love the metaphor, first of all. Uh, I have worked as a Foley artist for a place called Sound Deluxe. Great work, really exciting stuff, you know. I hate to keep going back to Takeover Live, but we're working on developing some sounds right now for something that's happening in the sketch. I think that would be me doing soundscapes and yeah.
All right. So then does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Well, that's going to depend again on the art of each performer. Some comics, comedians, they are fantastic storytellers. Other ones, other comics, comedians, they're busy orchestrating that. You know, they've got that whole set already blocked out in their head. Uh, I wish I had a better answer for you. Yeah, I love the metaphor, but I don't feel qualified to really answer that question as much as I'd like to.
Well, the metaverse is a tough place, but so we do have a tradition here in the Comedians in Elevators podcast, either in the metaverse or down on the ground, and it's where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Mark Hariitha, and his question for you, Judd, is who is one person that hasn't been in a movie or show that should receive the bioepic treatment?
What's up, Mark? I enjoyed your interview with our illustrious guest, our illustrious host here today. I believe that the comics Type 5 may survive time because the cultural references that comedians utilize in their performances could become completely irrelevant in 2 to 5 years. If you're talking about a president at the time, and then in 4 years you have a new president, that's in the past. That's irrelevant. But if you're a comic and you're crafting jokes, you can dial it in for that particular moment in time. So I think the comics Type 5 will survive time better.
All right, awesome. Well, Judd, where can everybody find you online?
I'm on Instagram at DJ Digital Angel. And I'm also all over IMDb. Come look me up on IMDb and help my numbers go up. Won't you, please?
Absolutely. Well, Judd, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one. If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.